First of all, I was pleased to join the leader this week to launch a guide for members and candidates coordinated by the Anti-Semitism Policy Trust on tackling conspiracy theories. Whilst their existence is nothing new, their reach, risk and repercussions are ever increasing, and I encourage colleagues to read this important guide. I want to start by welcoming my new colleague, Chris Webb, the new member for Blackpool South, the first person from Blackpool representing Blackpool in over 60 years. Having campaigned with him for years, I'm proud to now call him my honourable friend. I know too that his former boss and our good friend Tony Lloyd would be thrilled and proud too. Can I also welcome two more members to Labour? The member for Dover and Deal, and the member for Central Suffolk and North Ipswich. Our reach into previously undiscovered support is really much broader and deeper than I ever imagined, Mr. Speaker. Talking of which, yesterday we understand Conservative members were all trooped over to number 10 for a presentation and briefing on how they didn't really lose the local elections after all. Perhaps we could have a debate on what the local election results are telling us. It might help to inject a little bit of reality into their thinking, because you can't cure something if you're in complete denial about it. Which part of the message that voters were expressing did their tin ears not hear this time? The third biggest swing since the Second World War in a parliamentary by-election? Losing the York and North Yorkshire mayor in the Prime Minister's own backyard? Labour taking Rushmore, the home of the British Army? Or losing one of their more successful elected representatives, Andy Street, in the West Midlands? If they can't hear the message now, it would be a stark awakening in the general election. And we might have all had a small laugh, Mr. Speaker, when the former Prime Minister forgot his voter ID, yet another of his own rules that he thought didn't apply to him. But there is a more serious point. We also saw veterans turned away from the polls because they couldn't use their veterans' ID card. The government had promised to add it to the list of acceptable IDs. When will they do that? I notice there's nothing in the upcoming business on the sentencing bill, which is quite a surprise given we learned this week from a leaked email to probation and prison staff that some prisoners will be freed up to 70 days early. Why is the government consistently failing to bring back the sentencing bill where these issues could be properly debated, and why are they failing to publish the figures on the number and nature of prisoners released early? It's another part of their plan which isn't working, isn't it? Despite serious and fast-moving developments in Israel and Gaza, the government didn't come to the House to make a statement again this week. It was only through you, Mr. Speaker, granting an urgent question that members could raise issues. We want to see an urgent ceasefire and the assault on Rafah stopped. But after much delay, the government rejected the Procedure Committee report into holding Lord Secretaries of State accountable. Yet it is very clear that there is widespread support across the House for their recommendations. So rather than the government simply rejecting it, shouldn't the leader seek the view of this House and bring forward a motion on the accountability of the Foreign Secretary to this House as soon as possible? Whether it's the Middle East, China or Ukraine, there are hugely important matters to be raised. I'm very pleased that the leader has finally brought forward the Commission's proposals on risk-based exclusions next week. Staff and those working in this place will be looking carefully at what we say on Monday in the interests of their safeguarding. However, as we heard last night, members want proper time to debate these proposals and amendments. Has she considered those calls to extend the debate on the motion beyond 2 hours? Despite his latest set of disastrous election results, the Prime Minister continues to insist that his plan is working. Fingers in his ears, ploughing on as if everything is fine. It's as if there's no cost of living crisis or that waiting lists aren't sky high. that voters just need to see more of the real Rishi and listen to him better. But the reality is very different. People are crying out for change. But the only thing that doesn't seem to ever change is that every time he faces the electorate, he loses. That's not going to change, is it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, can I just first of all mark that yesterday we had VE Day, and I know there will be many events going on across our constituencies during that week. It is a chance to remember the debt we owe our forebears and also think of those facing conflict today. Can I also welcome the Honourable Lady's new colleague to his place and pay tribute to all candidates who took part in the important elections last week. And can I also thank the Shadow Leader for helping me launch the publication she refers to. We commissioned this publication, and I thank all the organisations who worked on it. It is important that we combat the rise of conspiracy theories. It is part of restoring trust in what we do here and keeping trust in democracy. And I think this will be a useful product, not just for members, but also those that wish to come here too. I shall certainly make sure that the Lord Chancellor has heard what she says on the sentencing bill, although he will find her concern odd, given Labour's voting record on our measures to introduce tougher sentences. The Honourable Lady, turning to the issue the Honourable Lady talks about with her new colleagues that she mentions, and I do hope the Honourable Member for Dover is being made to feel very welcome indeed in her new party. Whilst I am buoyed up, Mr. Speaker, at the news that our odds on retaining Dover have actually slightly improved since yesterday lunchtime. True. I think it is a personal tragedy for the Honourable Lady for Dover, as it was for the Honourable Member for Central Suffolk last week. But what it has exposed is a pattern of behaviour from the Leader of the Opposition. It is a shame, Mr. Speaker, that we are not due an update to Peter Brookes' Nature Notes. For the Decorator crab is a species which covers its surface area with materials to disguise its true form, usually selecting sedentary creatures and seaweed. The Leader of the Opposition is the Decorator crab of these benches, desperate to show that he's not really leading the Labour Party at all. He has channelled Margaret Thatcher, his deputy has praised Boris, he's expelled the member for Islington North with great fanfare, a man who he was campaigning to be Prime Minister only moments before. His exterior shell is stuck over with St George's flags, his gunner's season ticket and several programmes from the last night of the proms. What next? A photo op with a bulldog? A lecture on how misunderstood Enoch Powell was? Should I ask the whip on duty on the front bench if he has checked in recently with the Honourable Member for Rayleigh and Wickford? Mr. Speaker, this is Operation Radish, the concerted effort to convince the British public that while the Labour Party might look red on the outside, at his heart it isn't really at all. However, even the defection from our benches of one of Labour's most sternest critics cannot disguise the fact that Operation Radish is not going well. Not everyone has got the memo. The Honourable Lady talks about the important election results last week. Has she noticed that the new mayor for the West Midlands' first act was not to turn his attention to investment or infrastructure, but to Israel and Gaza? Ditto for the mayors of West Yorkshire and London, the latter also stating equivalence between the head of state of Israel and a terrorist organisation. The anti-nuke Shadow Foreign Secretary is currently trying to walk back from calling a candidate for the President of the United States a neo-Nazi sympathising KKK sociopath. The Honourable Member for Ilford North sought to smear a decent candidate for the Mayor of London as a white supremacist. Object to you, Les, and you're a child killer. If you're a woman advocating for your rights and dignity, you are a bigot. Want to strengthen our borders? You're a racist. If you have made money through hard work, you can't possibly get Britain. That is today's Labour Party, just as it's always been. The politics of the PLP is more the politics of the PLO and the JCR. More comfortable in university-tented encampments and picket lines than on the international stage. More interested in thought policing than actual policing. Labour haven't changed. not their behaviour, not their record. It's still high crime rates, high waiting lists, higher taxes, higher levels of poverty, less pay, less opportunity, less money for the NHS, less freedom. The British people can see what is going on. They like their radishes in salads, not number 10.